Hey everybody, I'm Jimmy Rance. Listen, I can't tell a story quickly. It's just impossible, especially whenever it's a true story that concerns me, maybe my life, things that have happened. I just can't. I would appreciate it if you would just give me the benefit of the doubt and not just cut me off at the 1 minute mark. This is a true story. It's kind of a story that I don't know if I should be telling, but at another way, I believe that maybe it's the right story to tell because maybe it'll help me and maybe some of you can identify with what I'm talking about. This is so unlike me, but I want to tell this story the best I can. I don't have a script. I don't have Hollywood production. I don't have a slew of writers and backgrounds, and I don't have all this technical stuff to make me look like a standout professional videographer or some kind of newscaster or storyteller because I'm not. I'm just a regular guy. I'm 72 years old. I'm from Mississippi Gulf Coast and I live in Colorado now. Last night, I don't know where to start and I don't know where I'm going to end. So I just ask, be patient with me. This is kind of important to me. It really is. It's kind of a reflection type story. Maybe a lot of you, like I said, can identify with this. Last night before I went to bed, I was talking to a dear, sweet friend of mine. And we had a nice conversation. This person is a Christian. And I'm not going to preach to you, okay? But I'm going to talk about some things that have to deal with maybe some faith-based stuff. Okay. But it concerns kind of me. And so after I talked to this person last night, I went to bed and I was laying there and I was just thinking. I was thinking about how as a child, how I grew up in a Christian home, mostly from my grandmother and from my grandfather. I lived with my grandparents. My whole family lived together, to be honest with you. And we were very rooted in church, very faith-based. And then all of a sudden, this is where the story's going to kind of get interesting. At least I hope it will. This is about the time that when my mother got a divorce and she married my stepfather. I kind of talked about that a few videos ago in the past. Well, my stepdad was not really a very religious man at all. In fact, I think he got to hate it. To be honest with you, both of my parents, my mom and my stepdad, they turned atheist. They just turned atheist. They started studying some other, I don't know what you call it, but it totally took them out of the church. It took them out of their faith. And as a youngster, as a young teenager, 13 years old, somewhere around there, I think it was 13, I started listening to them. And it was very easy at that tender age to start going, wow, they may be right. So I started questioning things. I started questioning the church. I started questioning things that I had been taught all of my life about God, about Jesus, about grace and faith and forgiveness and all-powerful God and everything. And I'm going to give you an example of something like, if I can remember, my dad would say stuff like this to me. Okay? Now remember, I'm only, 13 years old. He would say, why would an all-knowing, all-loving God allow a devil in his divine plan? Why? And when you're 13 years old, you think about that. He would tell me, you don't have free will. And I would say, what do you mean? He goes, you don't. Because if this all-knowing God who knew everything, he always was, he always will be, he knew how you would turn out before you were born. He knew that you were going to turn out to be the bad guy and end up going to hell. But he allowed you to be born, to go through this knowing that you're going to end up going to hell. And so I thought about that as 13 years old. And I thought about it more and more, 14, 15, 16. I thought about it a lot. And I started, and there's so many more examples I could give you, but I don't want to bore you with all that stuff. Now, a lot of you again will say, well, that's because you have free will. Well, he would say, no, you don't. My dad, my stepdad, no, you don't. Because if God knew all things and allowed you to be born, knowing you're going to end up in hell, where's the free will? You don't have a free will at that point. That's what he tried to instill in me, and I listened to it and I bought into it. Again, I'm 71, and from the time I was 13 all the way up until probably last night, I kind of believed all of that stuff. And I guess I lost my faith when I was about 13 years old. And that was a horrible thing, because it took away any hope that I had. I felt like I was a free agent. I had free agency. I could do whatever I wanted to do, and I didn't have to be responsible to nothing religious-wise, God or nothing. I just turned my back and I walked away. But last night when I was laying in bed thinking, there was a very influential man in my life, maybe yours too. Maybe a lot of you that's a little older remember this gentleman, and I loved him, I still do. And I hate that this man had to pass away. And that's Reverend Billy Graham. I love this man. I don't care how atheist I was or agnostic I was or a lack of faith or whatever. When Billy Graham was on the television doing a crusade, I was right there, and I always listened to him. Well, back in, I don't know, it was either 1980, maybe 1981. I don't know, I may be wrong about that. He did a crusade in, I believe it was in Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. And I listened to it. My wife and I both listened to it. And and this is what I was really thinking about last night. And this is where I'm really going with this story. So don't give up on me yet, okay? This is kind of important to me. You can laugh at me if you want. You can scoff at me if you want what I'm going to tell you. But it's okay. I know. Believe me, if anybody knows, it's me. But he was talking about loneliness. Loneliness. And I thought about it last night. I just kept thinking about to myself, I'm alone. I feel empty inside. I feel hollow inside. I feel like, to be honest with you, I felt like at one point in my young life I was in the light, with God being that light, but I walked away from the light. And it's dark now. It's dark out here. And I'm walking around in this darkness thinking I got everything solved, nothing to worry about, but yet I'm alone. I'm empty. And I got to thinking about what Billy Graham used to say. He says, the reason, this is what I want you to think about, and I'm not preaching to you, I'm just telling you what I remember and how I feel. But Billy Graham was saying the reason you feel empty and you feel alone and you're walking in that dark is because you're separated from God. You've walked away from God. And that's what I did. I know I did. So I remember something that he used to say all the time at the end of his crusades, and I may get it wrong, but he said something like, if you are not willing to acknowledge me before men, I will not acknowledge you to God, which is in heaven, or something like that. If you're not willing to acknowledge me before men, I will not acknowledge you to my Father which is in heaven. And I was thinking about that last night. So I did something that I don't really do. And I'm going to tell you what it is. I said a prayer. Agnostic people don't pray. But I did last night. And I didn't ask for nothing selfish, I promise you that. But I did reach out to this power that's greater than I, to this originating cause of all that is. That's who I was directing my words to last night in my bed, laying there with my little dog boobs. And I basically, I just kind of said I'm lost. And I don't want to be lost. I don't want to feel shallow and hollow and empty and alone. I don't. So I just said, will you help me? Will you give me some guidance? Will you give me a sign? Something. This has been a tough year for me. Very tough. And all of you know why. But I'll tell you something else I did. I said a prayer for all of you people. I don't know you. Never met any of you. I know, well, maybe just a few, like maybe my kids and maybe a friend, a real life long friend. But I don't know, the rest of you. But I prayed for you anyway. So all I ask is that you expect a miracle. Thanks for listening to this, guys. I'm Jimmy Rance. I guess you could call this a testimony. I don't know. Thanks a lot.